So let's go on to the next game.
Yes.
We have Chris McFarland here with us, and he's
Hello,
gonna.
can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
we
can.
can. Really nice to
Okay.
have you
Excellent.
here.
Great. Hello, Auntie and Matthias, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming. It's far away. What's the time over there?
So here in New Zealand, it's Friday morning, just after 9 a.m. and
All right.
dropped my kids off to school about half an hour ago, and sort of got back. I was like, right, let's find out that my regular microphone has been broken in a box because there's too much other stuff I haven't used in such a long time. So I'm using Apple Bluetooth headphones and mic at the moment, and thus it doesn't work great with the PC. And my other Mac is downstairs with my kids' stuff, and it's just like, oh, I'll just do this with my other Mac Mini setup. So hopefully this is good enough. But
Yeah. Well, I sort of have the same situation over here as well. It's like everything is in boxes or something. So I can
yeah.
feel you. I can feel you.
So I have a box there on the table as well.
Yeah, and then I can't get my profile picture to work on this streaming thing. It just doesn't. It lets me submit the image, but then it doesn't let me apply it. So it's like, oh well, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
All right.
Can you tell something about the game?
Sure. Okay. So what you're seeing here is a game called Tallowmere 2: Curse of the Kittens, and I released this on Steam Early Access just in December 2020, so about 3 months ago. I've been working on this game for about 4 years, since 2017. And it's a sequel to a game called Tallowmere, just Tallowmere by itself, that I put on Steam back on 2015, back in the days of Greenlight, kind of when indie games were this weird thing where, like, I don't think itch.io existed at the time. It was sort of indie game stand. Desura, was it? Was another sort of indie retail site that didn't really last for too long. And yeah, having to go through the whole Steam Greenlight thing of where only a certain number of games would be put through every couple months or something, and people had to like vote, and it was all based on wish list count, all this weird kind of stuff, just because you weren't a commercial AAA publisher. But anyhow, so I made Tallowmere, which only took me about a year from memory. And I was new to game development. I used to be a website developer before doing game stuff. But I found that websites were just kind of boring. Like, I like programming, but doing that in a retail sense, like 8 hours a day, getting customers, I was just like, nah, I need to do something else. So I made Tallowmere, and at the time, Spelunky was a big inspiration for me, sort of figuring out how to add game mechanics, making the enemy AI kind of do their own thing while being aware of you, but doesn't always have to be aware. And so with Tallowmere and Tallowmere 2, one of the main aspects was it needs to be in a dungeon. It needs to be bloody. I quite liked the gameplay of having a shield block your attacks, whereas, say, certain games require you to jump out of the way or roll or dodge or something. I thought, how about you got to have your shield raised, and that sort of negates damage to alive.
Thanks for reminding about the shield.
Yeah. And so that was Tallowmere 1. And then one of the things that a lot of my fans really wanted was online gameplay. And I thought, I'll try that for the sequel. I tried it for a little bit with re-implementing it in T1, but it was too much of the game was not designed to be set up like that. If you press, are you using a controller or keyboard?
Controller, yeah.
I think left trigger.
Yeah, I can
drink
heal
a
myself.
potion. Yeah, cool. And so Tallowmere 2 was kind of this thing of, okay, I sort of know how to make games now, kind of. let's make sure online networking is probably going to work. And that's really made the development time be a lot longer because of it, but it's done, or it's pretty much in. Mostly works. There's a couple of odd random bugs, but on the whole, it's like doing server deployment, making sure people can connect. I've got a mobile version underway, and that works between desktop and mobile. So just a lot of technical features that really aren't fun to create, but once you make it and it's in, the hard work is done, and then people can enjoy it, which is sort of what it's all about. But yeah, with Tallowmere 2 here, it's largely based on an action roguelike type of mentality where the rooms are randomly generated, the enemies are randomly chosen, their positions are chosen randomly, the loot is random. There's some pedestals in this game. There's kittens to rescue, which give you random blessings as well. And I guess one other key factor with Tallowmere and Tallowmere 2 as well is that I always kind of like just being able to chase a high score. It doesn't really have to have an exciting save the world kind of story, save the princess or something. Lady Tallowmere is in the homeroom, which you can use the blue portals to go home to visit her or the home merchant to spend your hard-earned gold on for new items. And Lady Tallowmere is basically the dungeon overseer, the dungeon overlord. She can heal you out of her kind generosity, just because she knows you're going to be in a lot of pain trying to go through the dungeons. So that in a gameplay sense, that also means that you can, in most rooms, escape back home and heal up without dying. Because if you die in the spirit of a roguelike, you're going to get a game over screen. There will be. I do want to have difficulty options later for more casual sort of player respawning, or even just maybe a stock count like Smash Brothers or Mario. But for now, it's just once that health bar reaches 0, you're done, and then you get to try again. Which some people like, some people don't.
I like.
All right. Rescue the kitten.
Dark corruption. Okay. Doesn't sound good, even it's a blessing.
It's a good thing for the player. Enemies will emit AoE, which hurts other enemies. Doesn't hurt you, if I remember correctly. And you can get a lot of chain reactions of just a lot of damage. And yeah, so for the initial launch here of early access, there's 9 different kittens, which you saw in the home screen at the initial intro. And they do different things if you can rescue them, and just to help you out. But there's a lot more.
There we go.
Yup.
And all the way to the beginning.
And then yes, back to the beginning. Yeah.
How else?
Yes, there's some people like that aesthetic. I do, but I know it is not for everyone. I mean, it's hard to appease to all players, but that's the aim of the game, is not to die. And if you do, well, hopefully you can figure out what was hitting you and use your shield better next time. I've tried to emphasize with the game that some games, I would say, lack at times of getting hit, making sure it's known that you took damage. Like the screen shakes, the screen flashes red, your health bar shakes. It's not just some piddly little, you got hit by something and the game's not going to tell you about it. So I'm quite big on UI juicing, of making sure that it feels bad.
Yeah, and the audio, actually, like, it's part of the feel. It's really like brutal. brutal use of audio. That's how I would call it. Reminds me of those like old video games from the 80s or something like that. And
yeah,
it has that kind of brutal feeling that I almost feel like I'm getting hurt.
Yeah, and with the controller, making sure that rumbles as well.
Yeah, it's all.
But yeah, so to heal, you can use a potion, or go find a portal and go back home. And yeah, there's a couple bugs here. Like you saw that flying Zeri was kind of stuck on the corner. I need to fix that. Even here, your weapon, it's a fire axe, but the glow for it is off centered. I gotta figure out which where the sprite, why that's being a bit silly. So it's not the No, the traps on the walls currently are not destructible. I do have it written down on my list to investigate for an upcoming gameplay patch to see about making them be a bit more able to be destroyed or disabled somehow, because sometimes it's annoying, a little too annoying. As a designer, trying to find the sweet spot between how annoying is annoying. I don't want to remove it completely, because then unless something is that annoying that it's just not fun in any sense and not a challenge. But
yeah, there's a certain level, like it's annoying, but people love it, or like that two kind of
like
annoyance things going on.
Don't have it, and everyone's gonna say it's too easy. Keep it in. If it's too hard and everyone's complaining about it, okay, maybe it needs to be nerfed or tweaked a little bit. But the flat out going, no, I'm just gonna remove it completely. That's sort of the last resort. I'd like to at least explore finding a better way to keep it, but without infuriating the player too much. There's things in the game. One feature I tried to do with Tallowmere 2 here is that for most weapons, and there's still more to do, but there's poison elements, which adds a damage over time. Fire currently is more just there's fireballs in the game, like that one. Tallowmere 1 had a flamethrower and had a fire damage over time effect. Is that going to be the same as poison? I'd like to experiment with having it be a little bit different, just because otherwise it's just the same thing, which to me is boring. There's a purple arcane stunning, so if you get stunned, well, that's not good because you can't use your shield and you're probably going to die. Stunning enemies is good though, because then they can't attack. And
this weapon is awesome. It's just kind of I kill myself as well with this weapon.
Oh yeah, some are fun, but you gotta watch out, because a couple stray grenades can be the end of yourself. One thing with Tallowmere and Tallowmere 2 as well is that I guess as a designer, I don't like ammunition quantity counts within reason, just because it's more fun to just be a badass and throw spam things. Like it's silly. So you're not gonna go, you only got 3 grenades. Better make really smart use of them, and then you end up not using them at all because you want to save the item for that sweet special moment, and that moment never comes. So it's like, no, let's just not have mana bars, stamina bars, any kind of ammo unless there's a really good reason. I think potions have a quantity at the moment, just because I want to emphasize that you can use your shield, but your shield doesn't have a stamina bar or anything, so you can just keep that raised and negate damage, and then go hard with the attacks. I will give you a heads up. Unfortunately, there's not a bug, but a mechanic where you've got this, just rescued that kitten, you've got this lovely storm cloud above your head, which will occasionally shoot lightning at enemies to help damage them. But with grenades, your friendly lightning can explode your own grenade, so if you happen to throw a grenade and the lightning cloud decides to shoot at the same time and maybe blows up in your face, just a heads up.
Okay.
So that's something on my list. But yeah, so Tallowmere 2 is a combination of just a lot of randomness. It's also got we've got single player here that you're playing. I've got online co-op, and couch co-op, local co-op, so you can have up to 4 players using a controller, sharing the same screen.
No.
Oh dear, stunned and hit in the back a few times. Yep.
The doors.
And each room also has once you get past room 5, as you were just in, there's room modifiers in the spirit of randomness. And each modifier can do things like making enemies all use the same weapon or the same element type, or have bouncy projectiles, or even more projectiles than normal. And I think every 5 rooms past room 5, up to a max of 5 modifiers at the moment, things like rooms can get pretty random and hectic based on what the room modifiers end up doing. And all these things, I guess, have spurred, have added them to the game, and there's more to come. But a lot of stuff in the game is just kind of base frameworks and the ground foundations for things to be added in the future, because not everything happens instantly in the world of game development where you go, I want to add a thing, and it's like, okay, so let's do a rough prototype, make sure it kind of works in theory. Then is it going to need sprites, sound, how does it feel, text translation, and it's all just kind of like, yes, I will add that, but geez, it's not going to be an overnight edition unless I'm in a really good flow and good mood, but that doesn't happen too often. It's nice when it does, but it's not a guarantee.
Yeah. And actually, when you said the word translation, it was kind of interesting to notice that my Steam is in Finnish language, and I was starting up the game, and actually the name was translated into Finnish. That was
yes,
a little bit surprising.
Yeah, my Finnish translator, and he translated Tallowmere 1 as well. I think he said he's worked on a few different games here and there on Steam. He just kind of really likes the indie vibe and likes to help out, and it's pretty cool. And then with Steam, you can optionally translate the game's title, how it appears. And so I've left Tallowmere 2 as it is, but we did the subtitle for Curse of the Kittens being translated for Finnish because that was a good fit. Whereas my French translator, he was consulting his friends and said, "Nah, just keep the subtitles in English. It just sounds a bit silly in French." So I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
But there's pedestals with items, so you can get different. They don't really visually affect the character, but there's swords which have different maximum attack powers to add to your base strength. There's a couple of hearts. A lot of items that I want to add are based off of what other games have that I find fun and would like to have in my game, because why not? If it's fun, I'd like to have it in. I would say I'm not trying to be original with what I'm doing with the game, but it's kind of just about actually having a full package of having a lot of stuff, because that's what, for me, is fun with games. It's okay to have a good base prototype game mechanic and have it be playable, and that's all good, but really you want to keep coming back to a game, and so you need a lot of stuff to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
And if there's not, once you've seen everything, you kind of go, okay, well, I'll come back later if the game's still being worked on, or if it's not being worked on, maybe there'll be an expansion down the line if you're lucky. If not, you're probably going to move on to another game and just hope that you have that what you played in memory is was fun and you enjoyed it. But not all games get played for ages and ages. I expect people to get bored and moved on. Yes, so the kids, unfortunately, are kind of fragile, but that's okay. The whole thing with the kittens as well. In the first game, before I launched on Steam, I had a sort of a closed beta, and one of my testers was saying, "Chris, this is a really hard game. Can you please make it easier somehow?" I don't want to have have a massive health bar to start with, and I don't want to nerf enemy damage too much. And I don't really want to have difficulty like easy, medium, hard as menu options, at least in the first game. And so I thought, what's the really most evilest way I can make the game easier while making you feel bad? And I thought, let's have a basket of sacrificial kittens in the homeroom that you can optionally sacrifice a kitten and gain plus 10 maximum health as a starting attribute. And so for the sequel, I thought, let's kind of take that kitten idea and keep them in the game, but maybe not be as mean. So the whole Curse of the Kittens subtitle and rescuing the kittens, I kind of felt like maybe we should redeem the kittens rather than killing them this time.
Yeah.
So that item just activated Stone of Daishan, I believe it's called, and if you're in a big room and there's heaps of enemies, you can just activate that if you find it, and it kills them all, and just kind of get away scot-free. These pedestals do usually have a negative curse. Currently, the only curse in the game is to make certain enemies be doubled when they spawn in the room, and they don't give you coins nor souls, I don't think.
Mystery.
So I want to add, so with leveling up, kind of in the spirit of Nuclear Throne, where when you level up, you get to choose a thing. I thought let's try making a third option as well, as rather than just your typical health or damage. A third random option. Just if you're feeling lucky, go for it. And there's a whole bunch of different attributes that can be chosen.
Yeah, I feel like all the dungeons are different. I have never felt that. I have played this dungeon before. Like even with randomness, that can happen. It depends how you make the randomness. But in this game, it really works.
Oh, thank you. It's some. So I believe it's like the Binding of Isaac series, the Spelunky series, and even Diablo 2. A lot of segments are pulled from with the random generation. There's a lot of preset areas that are then chosen, kind of like playing cards, and the games piece those segments together. For Tallowmere and Tallowmere 2, most of the areas are. I think the algorithm is basically a drunken walk. My room generator basically says which items and enemies do we need in the room. So we're going to need, say, 10 enemies and maybe 2 treasure chests and a pedestal or something like that. And the game then traverses, I think it does 10 paces in a random direction. And there's a reason why this game is very blocky, like with the room layouts, because it's kind of just squares. It's not trying to be crazy slope caverns or anything too fancy. It's very simple. But it sort of does 10 steps in northeast, southwest, and then after those 10 steps, it calculates to see if there's enough floor spaces for the required amount of things that need to spawn. And if there aren't enough spaces, then it does another 10 steps in random directions, and then recalculates to see if there's if there's enough space, and it just continues that until there is, and then that's the room. And then it sort of goes, all right, how many traps should we spawn? You got the spikes in the walls, the ceiling and the wall traps for the projectile emitters, and then the spinning pinwheels at the moment as well. And it's not trying to be too over the top. I would like to experiment with having more pre-made segments to add later for like special areas. One thing that Tallowmere 2 lacks at the moment are special areas and bosses. Tallowmere 1 had a few bosses and a couple different special areas where it's just a sort of an excuse to make the dungeon be a little different rather than the same old formula that I just explained. And I'm hoping to add in things like a fountain that gives you yet another random blessing or something, or a specific room where you got to rescue I don't know, a quick little fetch quest, collect 5 things, return them to an NPC or something like that, get a reward, or have a boss. Bosses in 2D spaces are kind of challenging because, one, it sort of needs to look good. 2, you're limited by, especially with the shield mechanic, where you can't just block all the boss's attacks in theory. Then it's like, do you need mobs to spawn behind you just to make things hard, or have the boss move as well? Or not. I don't know. I have a couple prototypes in, but I just haven't really committed to making them be fleshed out and ready enough to be playable yet. So they're coming, but they're just not on the cards yet.
So, what's the plan overall with the game? Like,
so the long-term plan. So I mean, I've spent 4 years working on this somehow, and still have a lot more to add. I think feature-wise, in the dungeon, I want to add more weapons from Tallowmere 1, a couple more elements. I need to add outfits and hats, because that's still not implemented, and Tallowmere 1 had those. And I'd like to kind of have not a full, like, here's the story in the game and this is it, but have like sort of episodic content of, here's a chosen story you can select from. Maybe the boss in room 60 will be the end boss for that specific story, but the build up to that boss will be focused on whatever that kind of story plot line is focused around. But one story doesn't necessarily have to relate to other stories or be the only story in the dungeon, because you're not really trying to save anyone. And the aim of the game is just to see how far you can go. And it being a dungeon, and Lady Tallowmere, while she can heal you, she's also a bit of a bitch. She's very snarky, and so she's kind of mean. And in that sense, and it's a dungeon, it's not trying to be a nice place. I'd like to explore some very, I don't know, not great plot lines, but at the same time, just keep it silly because it is a game. I'm not trying to have an ulterior motive or push an agenda. It's just like, yeah, here's a silly, not nice place to be, but I hope you're having fun, or will have fun, in a cruel kind of sense.
And
so there's a lot of
been the feedback with the game? Like, this seems to be like at least for me, like a streamer-friendly game that, if you're a streamer and you want to entertain your viewers, you play this game.
Yeah, I'd like to
know
think that there's a bit enough enemies, and there's more to come, and different weapons, but just to keep the on-screen visuals amusing for the audience. I mean, it's one thing to play it and go, oh, geez, I gotta watch for this incoming damage and have my shield raised, but just to have the blood splats effect, the blood splats, and all the once you get in the later rooms, I think currently there's a max of 30 enemies, and that's without extra curses and duplications and that kind of thing. Rooms can get pretty hectic and crowded, so yeah, I would like to think that it's entertaining for the audience in a streamer sense. It's... Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was I trying to say?
No worries. That happens.
Add more things. From a technical standpoint as well. At the moment, there's Steam leaderboards. There's achievements. I'd like to add workshop support for modding. We're being able to replace sprites. Add your own dialogue for NPCs. I have a dungeon room editor sort of half implemented. I haven't touched it in a long time, and we'll need some adjustments. But basically, being able to not have a randomly generated room and be able to carve out your own. Here's the enemy spawn points. Here's the room layout in the traps, and have that be kind of like a Little Big Planet or Super Mario Maker sense, where you can just design your own layout. Like just click and drag the mouse. Here's the room, and then click and drag the enemies or whatever you want to have, and so be able to allow players to add stuff and then share it with their friends or anyone that wants to give it a go. And use Steam Workshop primarily for that. But at the same time, there's also then I've got a Switch development kit sitting here with me, and ooh, the kid.
No.
Oh, no. The poison dot.
So close. Yeah.
So yeah, get a Nintendo Switch version out the door. And then for the mobile port as well, the mobile controls currently are working, and I spent a lot of time making sure that they. I mean, you can still use a controller with your phone or tablet, or you got the touchscreen controls in. I need to sort out. So on Steam, it's currently the game is priced at a $9.99 US dollar price point. Mobile Tallowmere 1 was a premium title. I think it was $2.99 US for a while, but I think it's just $1.99 currently. But for Tallowmere 2, I'm gonna have a go here with doing it free to install, but then probably one or three in-app purchases, kind of like a supporter pack. Like, here's the base game. Yes, you can play it, but if you want to play online or you want to get that random mystery reward from the statue, you're gonna please pay me a couple dollars. And I hope that will be kind of the sweet spot between, yes, it's free to install, so people will at least give it a try, because on mobile, that's just what dominates the markets is tap here to install. Premium, looking at my Tallowmere 1 sales, it's not impossible to make it worthwhile, but I think, the mobile market is still free to. I hate the word free to play because I don't like spending gold sinks and gems and time limits and those kind of horrible negative things that to me are not fun, which the mobile industry seems to be fascinated with because it works. And I didn't grow up with that, and I don't really like it. I don't really care about monthly user acquisitions and all this stuff. I just want to make a fun game and focus on the fun, and adding that kind of stuff is not fun, and milking the player, no, that's not why I'm doing this. Mobile probably free to install, but then it's a supporter pack in game just as a one-off purchase, and go from there. Console will probably be premium, much like Steam, just because I don't think free to install on console it's technically feasible. Like Fortnite, a couple other sort of PvP-based games might be able to get away with that with buying skins and stuff just to show off. But for this kind of game, no, probably not. Having said that, though, I still would like to add PvP later on. Not a priority right now.
Actually.
I mean, just because at this point with the game, it's kind of why not? The dungeons are set up. The goal is to see how far you can get a high score, and die trying. But everything else between you starting the dungeon and trying to go to the next room over and over again, anything else in between can be changed. I guess as a game developer, one I can't remember where I read it from, but the idea that there's a goalpost, which is the end death sequence. Your giant playing field between that and the end can be anything. And it's because of that I like to add a lot of different things just because it's fun. I can see this being having a PvP mode for capture the flag or free for all. Probably wouldn't try the MOBA type, destroy the other team's base and loot up in between the space of an hour. Maybe I won't rule it out, but it's kind of that's going to be a lot of work. But if there's nothing else to add, and that's kind of the thing that people want later down the track, sounds like it's a fun challenge to try and implement.
I can see there's plenty of directions for this game. and I mean this is already good. So
Yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, I don't really know how long all these things will take to add. I have some health issues that have slowed down Tallowmere 2's development a lot, and it's quite inconvenient and inconsistent. But that's the way it is. And as I'm just a solo developer, like this, as a professional, I guess this makes enough money to support me and my family, but doesn't really make enough to be able to just hire people and tell people, yeah, let's say, can you add this for me, and I'll pay you money in return, as a salary or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, technically I could, but I don't know that it would be financially worthwhile. I'd rather not shoot myself in the foot that way, because I do see studios close down because of mismanagement of funds, or just you make a hit and you get some money, but then the money, whatever you did for that sprint, dries up, and suddenly it's like, well, we can't really continue development anymore, and you have to call it quits. And I'd rather not do that either. And I guess being a solo developer, it also allows me to have flexibility during the day of not having to commit to a 8-hour time slot or something.
Yeah. Gives you certain kind of freedom, definitely.
Yeah, it's a weird lifestyle. This wasn't really what I was planning on doing years ago. I thought I got an IT degree. I like doing websites. Found that I didn't really like working in a workplace kind of environment, because I just 8 hours. Like, I like programming, but not every day straight. Like, especially as I'm getting older, I just don't have that energy anymore, especially with my health issues. And so, being a solo dev, my wife is able to work a 40-hour desk job and makes okay money through that. So she's our family's sort of income earner, if you will. And I get to sort of do this on the side while also getting my kids to school and back, without having to pay for like daycares and after hours. Because school finishes at 3 p.m., which doesn't really fit into the typical 9 to 5 work time frame. But
so have your kids played the game?
A little bit. I do try to turn the blood off. You can turn the blood off. But yeah, I remember my kids going, "Where's the key? Where's the key?" You gotta find the key, and figuring out how to get through a few rooms. So I guess my kids, I got 2 daughters. One's 9 years old, and the other's just turned 5. And they sort of know that, this is what I do. This is what I make. No, it's not quite my dad works for Nintendo kind of a thing, but they do know that I have my game on the Nintendo Switch, and it was on the Wii U as well. So it's kind of cool, weird at the same time, but they just play Minecraft all day. So. But yeah, I guess if I mean, this is a game development focused stream. Like, as a solo dev, having to do everything. It was interesting listening to your previous developer on just before with the cat game. Doing sort of 40-hour plus weeks, and then also having to do marketing, PR, and all this other stuff. Yes, it's nice if you can sort of have extra hands on deck. But yeah, it's all just money. Time. There's never enough time. And then customer, or I don't like using the word customer, but player feedback. This is broken, or can you please tweak this or change this? Now, when I made Tallowmere 1, I was quite done, and it's like, here's the game. I've added a few things, and I added a couple of things post-launch, but that wasn't really my focus. But doing this early access model with Steam, and probably planning on keeping it early access for a fair while, I imagine, at least a year, probably a fair bit longer. I'm much more in a position of saying, yes, I'm willing to look at changing this because one, the game's not done, and someone playing the game with feedback, they've probably invested more time into being annoyed or wishing something was changed a bit more than I have, because I've got so many other things I have to do. It takes a lot of time to sit and actually go, right, here's my design hat on, and I'm actually going to test and play this. That doesn't happen that often. I'll just go, here's the idea. I feel like implementing it. Seems to work. Sweet, let's add it. Let's move on. But then the players that are actually playing the game, rather than coding it, it's different. And so there's a lot of, for me, valuable feedback when someone says, "Hey, this kind of sucks," or "Can you change this?" or "I really love this. Please leave it alone," or don't change it, despite what other people are saying. So I got to sort of weigh up on that. But for me, I guess when someone takes the time out of their day to actually write down a suggestion or a bug or whatever, that speaks very loudly to me that they care, and therefore I care as well. Unfortunately, there's just so many things that a lot of features and suggestions and things get put on a list, and the list is large. Like I've got a GitHub tracker that I primarily use just because it's easy for me to add labels and keep track of different versions, or which things will be focused on in this version coming up or not. And there's just so many things, especially when you've got keyboard support, controllers, couch co-op, online, single player, online stuff. Even recently, one big thing that I added was so in this game, I made sure that you can save the game at any point. Like you can press escape right now, click save, and quit, and you'll be back right here without it's not like a checkpoint system. And coding wise, that works in a sense that you can like disconnect from an online game and then reconnect, and you'll be back where you were. And one feature I recently added too, because it was a very highly requested feature, was people wanted to play their online games, but they've been playing for 3 hours. They're tired. Everyone needs a break. They don't want to get disconnected, and they want to be able to resume their session with their friends at another point in time. And when I launched, the servers only kept the games in memory. They didn't write them to disk. So I didn't really have a resume feature enabled for online play. But I've added that now. So now that's a thing as well. You can kind of like, what was the Civilization 5, I think it was. That was a turn-based game, but you could have a online session, save and play it later. So it's kind of like that now. It's like, you can do that now. So it's like, hey, it's done. Hope that is useful and makes it worth worth playing online and really chasing those long games, those long high scores, just because it's fun. And from another sort of feature technical aspect, when someone has a bug, whether it's an like a coding error on my part or the Unity engine that I use, sometimes it just has errors. As long as the game doesn't do a full crash, which is pretty rare, the game will send your current save file to my website so that I can then investigate what the issue was. So I can get like pretty much an exact copy of at least the start of the room that you were in, so it helps me figure out what the issue was. So that's been quite helpful with fixing things that I probably wouldn't otherwise be able to know how to fix without asking the player, can you please manually go into your hard drive, figure out which file it was, email it to me. No, this is all just very automatic, so that they don't have to do any of that. So that's been quite handy. And then down the line, I want to look at doing like cross-platform saving, maybe. Like technically, it's doable, but from a setting it up.
That doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't. It's
I
hard.
don't remember a
It's
game
like-
having that kind of thing. Actually,
yeah, but it's kind of like I'd like to do it, but at the same time, I'd rather be focusing on adding things to the dungeon. Like back end coding is not exciting. It's not super exciting. It's looking at lines of code and going, I hope this works when I finally deploy and test the servers, and then got to check the logs. Whereas when you're playing something, you can immediately see if this weapon is working or not, or this visual effect or the sprite or whatever. This is kind of why I prefer making games, and sometimes wonder if I've gone in too deep with all this online stuff. But at the same time, I really wanted to make it happen, so here we are.
Yeah, and the game is really addictive. Like I realized, I lost the track of time actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh dear.
We were supposed to speak like how we're late anyways, but like
Yeah.
only 30 minutes. But
Yeah, we're 5 minutes over. It's, no problem.
okay, good to know. It's just 5 minutes.
Okay.
Well,
I
yeah,
totally
we were
lost the track of time, to be honest.
We were like 7 minutes late, I think. So that's not a problem. But yeah. But I think this time actually sort of to start rounding off this
wrap up.
this episode, wrap up this
That's all
episode.
good. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was really cool to be here. You had lots of interesting things to listen to. You had
Games addictive, really addictive.
Thanks. I remember one because before I launched on early access, I did have a free demo available, and a couple players, and looking at the stats, they played the demo for like 100 hours. And they just really liked just all the randomness, and you couldn't even get past. I think it was like I had limited the rooms as well. So yeah, some really enjoy it. Others go, nah. A couple hours in, I can't be bothered. I'd rather go play something else. But everyone's different, and that's okay.
So yeah,
it's really actually my thumb is hurting actually right now. Like I haven't had this feeling for a while from a game.
There's been calls for adding auto attacks just so your fingers.
No. I'm going to tapping.
It's a large part of the lack of ammunition and spamming buttons. Back when playing the Mega Man games, where I'd like to add some charge attacks to experiment, but just having to actually physically press a button over and over, it kind of gets annoying. But it's feedback. It makes you interact with the game.
Yeah, it makes me feel that I'm trying my best. I'm doing this by myself, and not the not the autopilot or whatever. However, you want to call
but at
it.
the same time, sometimes you are, I don't know, hurting, or maybe just tired, and you really don't feel like spamming the buttons, and maybe you do want to have it kind of help you out. So I'm kind of like, I'll look at implementing it. Probably not full attack speed, but we'll see.
Yeah.
all right.
So, where to find you and where to find the game?
I can type this. I'll say it here, and then I'll type it in the chat. Save you having to do it.
Yeah,
So the game's base website is Tallowmere2.com. My immediate links are Tallowmere2.com/contact, which you can find my email address, and I think I've got a Discord server, links to the Steam forums in there. But yes, let me type that in. And I would say I don't have a strict schedule for adding deploying updates to the game. I have a roadmap, and I always write change logs so you can see what's been added.
You have to write it in the private chat.
Oh yeah, we have the censorship.
Oh, okay.
On the
I
Twitch
will
chat
copy that to the yes.
links,
No,
yeah.
fair enough. This one. Okay, that should do it there.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. go. And links for you out there. Perfect.
Thanks.
All right. So it was really cool to have you here and listen to you tell a lot about the game. That was
there's a
thank
lot
you
of
for
things happening under the surface of the game. Like.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, no, thank you for playing it and having me on. It's
Thanks
tough,
for coming
like,
here.
no, it's very very cool. I'm not a huge streamer, but yeah, it just happened to work out well. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no problem. And and all the best of luck with the game and all the updates and good luck in the competition as well here at the GDW.
Yes. How many games have entered at this point? What did you say?
For the 2021, I think there's was like 500 games already.
Wow! Wow! Yeah.
I haven't checked the
That is a
number
lot.
for a while.
No, that's good though. No, it's fun that games have really sort of taken off. I mean, yes, from a commercial, the oversaturated, crowded market, it's kind of bad in a sense, and even like having so many games appear on Steam and mobile now, it's like, wow, there's just so many, right?
Yeah.
And we only got so many hours in a day. I'm not going to probably play them all, but it's good that it's a thriving thing because it's fun. Really, it's a fun form of entertainment. I mean, I like making games and people like playing them, and so it's mutual sweet.
Perfect match. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent.
Perfect.
I will head off. So thank you for having me on again.
Thank you for coming.
All the best. All right. Take care.
You too.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye bye.